Happy July from the beat. That's right. Talking season is well and truly upon us. He is Birm. I am Austin. This is the Austin and Birm Show. And I got the date right this time, Birm. I know what month it is.
Big win. You're 1 for 1 in the month of July so far, which is great. It's nice to start off with a W. And sometimes the thing you have to do is just see the ball go through the net. Okay. So layups, free throws, whatever. Getting the date right and getting the month right seems to me to be a simple place to start. And here we are. It's July. It's now officially Big Ten and all conference media month.
Yeah, talking season. And it is perfect because today's a Talking Tuesday. Adam King, the King, is on vacation. So Birm stepping up to the plate right here as Ohio State confirmed its representatives to go to Las Vegas 3 weeks from today. It sounds like it's a long way away. I promise you it's not. It's going to be here in a flash. And the Buckeyes going with Ryan Day, Caleb Downs, not a surprise. Sonny Styles, not a surprise. And Jeremiah Smith, which shouldn't be a surprise, Birm. But of those three, that was probably the last spot was up for grabs.
Yeah, and it makes sense for Ohio State to maybe have some back and forth and some reluctance to send JJ out there because of the circus that it's going to provide. But the question is, like, would you rather have the circus in Las Vegas or do you want the circus at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center? Because either way, Jeremiah Smith, before the season begins, is going to have every television network, every major radio channel, every NBC Nightly News, anyone around the country is going to want to talk to Jeremiah Smith before the season begins. It's going to be a pretty awful 48 hours, I bet, for JJ out there in Las Vegas. But again, the question is, where do you want that distraction to happen? And I think it makes a lot more sense from Ohio State's perspective to get him out in front of it, have him do it in Las Vegas. So that way, when he gets back to Columbus at the last week of July, Ohio State can have practices beginning without all of the extemporaneous BS that's going to come with it. And we'll still see Big Ten Network and that sort of stuff doing their practice day or their camp day or whatever. But it does take a little bit of the pressure off of him to have to do all those things in the middle of August.
Well, so going to Big Ten Media Days, I don't view that as a distraction. It might be uncomfortable. It might be lengthy, tiring, exhausting, repetitive for Jeremiah Smith because there's only so many different ways you can ask the best player in America NIL questions or how you're going to top on what you did as a freshman or what you thought your best catch was a year ago. Like that's all going to be
or draw the logo.
Draw the logo. Yes. Or
draw your team's logo and see how it compares.
What uniform would you design for your team? Like that's that's part of it. Like that is what those media days are for. It's entertainment, is getting excitement going for the season. It's why you want the best players there. But like that part it's designed for it. And the players that are chosen for it almost universally know what to expect and know how to manage it and get through it. Point of order. If Cade Stover can do it, literally anybody at Ohio State can. So
I think it's funny though. Like if you were to go through the Ohio State roster and pick, Jeremiah is his own entity, and we can talk about him certainly as we go through this. But two players who suffer fools lightly would be Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs. They're not into like game playing and shenanigans and all of the things that happen at media day. So I am interested to see how those two respond, considering the seriousness of their approach. I think that they will probably set a new team record for eye rolls when it comes to questions.
Boy, but I think we're on a streak.
They're professionals.
Yeah, I think I'm on a personal streak with Sonny Styles of him smiling, laughing, and making a joke like 5 times in a row. I was going to wrap that up with Jeremiah, but I think that there is a different side of Sonny Styles that I wanted to get into on Talking Tuesday that plays into the Block O, plays into the senior leadership, replacing Cody Simon, all those other things. And Big Ten Media Days, I think, is a potential showcase for that. But to go back to the distraction piece, this year in Las Vegas, but anywhere, if it had been Indianapolis or Chicago or whatever, they're designed to get these all done for the most popular players, the ones that are going to be the most requested. Jeremiah is at a different level than even Justin Fields before him or Chase Young or certainly Cade Stover that I mentioned, anybody from recent history, Marvin Harrison Jr. Like it's not out of the question. Like 60 Minutes and NBC Nightly News, as you said, would want to talk to Jeremiah going into the year. And if they want to do that, they need to go to Las Vegas because that's where the time and the opportunity is. And why I thought it was important for Ohio State to take Jeremiah, which is a little bit out of the normal order of business for the Buckeyes, where they want to take seniors, they want to take the captains. If you take a quarterback, you can because they're the most requested. You skipped all of that with someone who was the most popular, recognizable name in college football. And potential, I don't even know where to put it in terms of all athletics nationally, but he's in the top 100 when it comes to that as well, and maybe in the top 20. That sounds like a debate for another day, but all of those media outlets would be coming into Columbus starting on July 31st and throughout camp. And Ohio State doesn't want to be in the business of saying no to national media outlets who want to put a spotlight on their best player or best players, because that also limits the marketability of the program and the player when it comes to NIL, which they are all now in this together in a post-house settlement world, which happy July to everyone who wants to celebrate that as well. So I know that there were conversations. To be fully transparent, I was part of them about why Jeremiah Smith needed to go represent Ohio State, because if he didn't, and if you tried to side with, okay, well, Carnell Tate deserves the spotlight. He is a more senior member of the Ohio State wide receiver room, and he should be able to go represent the Buckeyes as well. He's probably not ever going to have that opportunity in his career. Well, if Carnell Tate went to Las Vegas, deservedly so, unfortunately, none of the questions would be about him. They would all be about Jeremiah Smith. And the person who should talk about Jeremiah Smith is Jeremiah Smith.
Probably. I think it's just such a funny departure from the trio that we had a year ago. You have like the elder statesman, the most professional, polished speaker in the world in Emeka Ibuka. You've got the heart and soul with Jack Sawyer. You've got the trash talker and Denzel Burke. And then this year you have three guys that are going to be like, oh, is this over yet? And I think it's funny. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not looking forward. I actually think it's a benefit to Ohio State to have JJ there, as you said, for a number of there's again, he's going to be asked about himself. Everyone else is going to be asked about him. I think he's less likely, I hope, to get questions about, hey, who's the starting quarterback? How does this look? How does this look? Because people are going to be focused on the bigger picture things with him. And as opposed to like Carnell Tate, I think you might see more questions about what have your thoughts been on Julian Sayin versus Lincoln Kienholz, or if you have Carson Hinsman out there. I mean, there's other guys that I think could have been representatives for the Ohio State offense. But when you're replacing nearly every starter on the team except for the wide receivers, it feels like a wide receiver has to be the one to go. And nobody makes more sense than Jeremiah just from this is who people want to talk to and about perspective. I just think, and he's funny because JJ, a lot of people don't really know what to expect out of him, but he is someone who will answer questions if you give him a microphone. And so he's not as shy maybe as his like public facing persona is. Once the microphone's in his face, he will answer the question you ask him. And so I wonder how that will go, because he's going to be asked probably some pretty wild questions.
Yeah. But I do think that, I assume that 90% of the local media is still going to go out to Las Vegas, the same way that 100% would go to Indianapolis or Chicago. It's more difficult. It's more challenging logistically. I don't mean that as
we know everyone's going out there and staying like Sunday to Friday to just spend the time in Vegas.
Well,
we're
not
the only people going back and forth.
No, I do know that not everyone is going. You have to remember, we also work at 10 TV and 97.1 The Fan, so they can use us to maybe shoulder some of that burden out there, because it's not as simple as it once was. And I don't mean that as a press box snob. I don't mean that as a complaint. I hope it comes back to the Midwest, because I think it's better overall. We can get to that when we get out to Las Vegas for the Ohio State beat, the Penn State beat, the Michigan beat, the
Big Ten
beats that actually matter, the ones that anchor the Big Ten, and also the fact that the headquarters are still in Chicago and not Los Angeles or Las Vegas is neither here nor there. I don't mean to start off the month by complaining. I just feel like
I'm going to get you to complain one way or another.
Yeah, it usually doesn't take much coercing for me to do that. But the point is, those of us that are out there that live in Columbus or based around covering Ohio State are still going to ask him about what spring football was like with Julian Sayin, with Lincoln Kienholz, with Tavian St. Clair. Like, And I think it will be fascinating because, as you mentioned, JJ does seem to be he's got that Denzel Burke truth teller to him, and he just hasn't had all that many opportunities in front of the microphone yet in Columbus.
Yeah, and he's going to get them because you can't hide this player anymore. Ohio State, to their credit, did a good job a year ago not hiding him as a freshman when I think a lot of other programs around the country may have tried to do that. But his star shines so brightly. I just don't think you had an opportunity to even try it. You couldn't pretend like, well, he's a freshman. This is our standard. Like he's not normal. So you have to let him give that opportunity. The questions that I think people will ask him are going to be about, unfortunately, the transfer portal, the NIL, like how much money did Miami really offer you in the offseason? Like, these sorts of things that I'm sure he'll be coached up to not talk about. But at the same time, like, we know how people work. I mean, the national media is there to get these stories out of kids because we live now in this plane of existence where that's all people really want to talk about is to the things that create drama and sell headlines. It's not about diving into the actual football program anymore. It's not about diving into the grit and the nitty gritty of the teams, which is why I personally, and I've said this for a few years, like I think media days are stupid and I don't think they should exist anymore. So I wish they would just go away in totality. That's not complaining. It's not, I just don't think that they're worthwhile. I think you could do this on Zoom or something with every team in a 3-day stretch and get just as much out of it. But I know nothing that college football loves more than pomp and circumstance and celebrating itself.
I can't believe that you said that before I did this year.
Yeah, it's just not necessary. I think it's one of the things we actually have regularly agreed on. These things are outdated and dumb.
Yeah.
But it's not a complaint. I'm glad we get to go. I'm looking forward to the trip to Vegas and the food and all of the things that come with a trip to Las Vegas. Although I'm not, a gambler per se, but I do like to eat.
Well, not a good one.
Yeah, I'm not a terrible one. I'm not even talking about sports gambling. I'm talking about like at the tables or stuff like that. I don't do any of that. I like the sights and sounds of Las Vegas, but as far as why we're going, the people who are going to get the most out of this on a national level are going to do it by sensationalization of headlines and trying to get gotcha type quotes. And that's just not what people in the local media are about.
Yeah. Well, two guys that won't get got are Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs. So I'm pretty fascinated to see what line of attack the national media might actually use with those guys, because I certainly have a lot of questions for them about Matt Patricia, about how this Ohio State defense is going to be tweaked from what they operated a year ago with Jim Knowles. And I don't expect a great amount of detail from either one of them, although I'm very confident that they could provide it if they wanted to. So maybe it's more like, what's the limit? How much about their teammates, their changing roles do they want to get into? Because I think that the national media would probably be bored with Sonny and Caleb, especially with JJ sitting there, which might be a great opportunity for those of us who actually want to talk about the Ohio State defense.
I think that's 100% spot on. One of the under discussed storylines of this offseason, ultimately with everything else that goes on in college sports now, with the addition of Matt Patricia as the defensive coordinator, we really don't know anything about this new Ohio State defense. And we've obviously joked ad nauseum in the last few years about the safety-driven defense and what that means with the Jim Knowles 3-high look. Like, Matt Patricia still wants to use 3 safeties from what I've been able to glean, and that seems like it's still his preference, but he's also known as a linebacker coach and known for finding ways to use the linebackers creatively and to get them more involved in the pass rush game. And so all of the conversation in the last few years about the jack position and Jim Knowles' desire to use it, and it never happened. And now we have Matt Patricia, who maybe it happens just without all of the fanfare. And I don't know who's affected more by Matt Patricia's defense, if it's Sonny Styles or if it's Caleb Downs. And so, like, if I have a question that I'm trying to get an answer to for Ohio State fans so that they can have a better idea of what to expect this season, that's probably it. Like, which one of you guys has had your role most impacted by the addition of Matt Patricia, or is this the same defense? Because it seems like there's parts of it where you can point to it and say, well, it's still the 3 high safeties. It's still moving these guys. It's still but now like the CJ Hicks move and Peyton Pierce and playing 3 linebackers like that, you can't have all these things happen at once. So what actually is going to happen?
Yeah, we haven't heard Jack, we haven't heard Bandit, we haven't heard Adjuster anymore. So maybe Matt Patricia just needs to come up with a lot more.
Yeah, what's the terminology?
Cool terminology for this, because like he could do all of those things
he could just make it up though, and we would have no iddia.
We'd be so excited.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This week we're deploying the Snapdragon, and then next week we're going to work on installing the Tofu Master. Tofu Master is really versatile. You can put it in any sauce, and it takes on the flavor of that sauce. So we don't really know. It doesn't taste good, but everyone seems to just eat it because they feel like they're compelled to. Like,
it doesn't actually have a specific flavor. That's what makes it so versatile.
Yeah, so it's neat, I guess. I mean, Matt Patricia, who we're not going to talk to again until like August, for when we'll get a chance to speak to him for 3 or 7 minutes. Like he could just make all their stuff up, and we have no clue. So we have to pull it out of Sonny and Caleb. And so I hope, and this is the hard part for the local media who's going to Vegas, like the desire is going to be in the scrum and the thousands of people around JJ, but like the actual conversation that we actually need in local media to get an idea of what this program is doing this year is going to come from the other guys. And I hope, and I guess I'm hoping for our sake that everyone leaves Sonny and Caleb alone and we can just go pick their brains.
Yeah. They might not, there's still enough national brand name recognition for Caleb that he's going to draw some crowd. But the real benefit is when Ohio State has their breakout podium sessions is that all 3 of those guys are available at the same time. You have to choose where you want to spend your time. And I think if you're talking about power rankings for the national media, it's going to go Jeremiah, Caleb, and Sonny. And I think for me personally, it would probably be the inverse.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know that I would have a preference because I'm kind of a jackass when it comes to these things. I just bounce around and ask dumb questions and try to get the guys to laugh or cry. I don't really have generally a desire to get too deep into their psyches, but I want to know what I just said, like what's changed the most for you in this new defense. And I would like to figure out from Sonny, like if there's a softening of his tough exterior outer shell, because as you mentioned, the last couple times we've seen him, he does seem to be walking a little lighter. He's got a little bit of a bounce in his step that maybe we haven't seen in the last couple of years when it seemed like he was unsure of his footing, both literally and figuratively. I think he just has a different air about him now. I'd like to get some feedback from him. And we talked to him, back in February about the potential for wearing the Block O. Like it seems like a no brainer that it's going to be him. What does it mean? Would Ohio State be willing to foist that upon him that early? I don't know. It'd be nice if we could. To me, if I was Ohio State, I'd be like, hey, we're going to tell everyone this now. Sonny Styles is the Block O at Media Day. Good luck. So at least you can force those conversations. But I'm interested in him as a human because knowing him since he was 15 years old, it's just fun to watch to see where he's grown up and how different he is.
Well, we're going to have to be careful with that because last year at Media Days, you put a pretty big chip out there that Jack Sawyer was going to have it. And I was right there with you. Mm-hmm. And you asked him about what it would be like to get the Block O, and then he didn't. I was like,
yeah, we should have taken
bamboozled.
We should have taken a hint from the fact that everyone else we asked who should get it was like, oh, Cody's going to get it. And we're like, oh, no, it's Jack. And then they're like, no, it's Cody. And we're like, oh, we don't know anything. Yeah. But that's the value, I guess, of talking to the other players. In this instance, I think they're all going to say Sonny.
Yeah. I would be stunned if they didn't. If there was, let's say there was a 4th spot because Ohio State needed to take JJ. Who just missed the cut for you? Who would you most have enjoyed having out there? I guess I can't phrase that the right way because we would love to talk to the quarterbacks because we haven't in a while.
I think it's Carson Hinzman. I think it's Carson Hinzman. I think you should have the leader of the offensive line. Aside from the fact that offensive linemen are generally among the most intelligent and insightful and like interesting conversations that you can have. As we've seen over the years at Ohio State, they've always been like the collection of the best talkers on the team. Mm-hmm. I think everything else that's happened in Carson Hinzman's career to get to this point, the fact that he's now the unquestioned leader of that offensive line group, maybe alongside Austin Saraville, but certainly one of the two. the conversations about him being benched 2 years ago and everything else. Like, I just think that his story is interesting. And I wish people could get a chance to dive into that a little bit more. Other than that, offensively, I can't think of anyone that I think is really deserving of that spotlight. And I wouldn't want to take a third defensive player. So I think it'd have to be him. Unless it's Edric, of course. Edric, I know you're watching. I'm never putting you down, bud. We're just always telling you how much I love you.
Yeah, you just got be careful. He's always listening. Carnell Tate is right there, as I mentioned, on the precipice as well. And the way Ohio State has talked about his leadership, I think that would have been pretty cool. But you're 100% correct. It's Carson Hensman. He deserved to be there. And there's just Ohio State has built a roster of people that's like, you could make a case for 12 different Buckeyes being there. Most years, maybe it's more obvious this year than previous years. Especially without a quarterback.
The question is, so let's move away from the players. Obviously, Ryan Day will be there, and so that's with everything going on in the House settlement. I mean, I always go back to the conversation we had with Ryan Day out at Big Ten Media Days in 2020, or maybe it was 2021. Right at the start of the NIL era, and him saying that people were not going to recognize the game of college football in 5 years. And I don't think he really intended to be so omnipotent or whatever, but like, I would really like to know from his perspective.
He didn't say that he had all the powers in the world. He was being prophetic.
Whatever.
Omniscient.
He's omniscient, right? Not omnipotent. Whatever. Now he's got a national championship. Okay,
That's
he's
true.
One of three coaches. He has more power now than he did then when he was simply being omniscient. And now he actually has potentially authority and power where his voice carries some weight.
Okay.
I would like to know if there's any part of him that wants to stand up and scream and say, "What are we doing now?" Because that always ends up being a piece of this puzzle. But I do wonder from a Ryan Day perspective, with the national championship under his belt, knowing that it's him, it's Dabo Swinney, and it's Kirby Smart as the only three coaches that are active in college football to have won a national championship. Like, his weight, his voice, the gravitas is greater than it will ever be. And there are still obviously things that are not going the way that they're supposed to when it comes to these rules and the new regulations and the House settlement. And I guess I'm most curious to see how he responds to that. We know he's not going to say anything about his team other than that they're trying their best to get prepared and he doesn't know who the quarterback is and all that. Like, what is the new? We've talked so much this offseason, Austin, about the new Ryan Day and the way he is handling himself. I just want to see if he's willing to stand up and be a leader for the Big Ten, and maybe a detractor from the way that the rest of the powerhouses in the conference are handling things, because it seems like the Ohio State brand is the only one on an island right now saying, why are we still doing these things?
Yeah, no, I absolutely believe that he will. And I think Ross Bjork will probably do the same thing in Las Vegas. We'll get to more with those guys in the coming weeks as we get ready for that trip, which is we leave in 20 days. The Buckeyes are that Tuesday, the 20. What is that?
I leave in 18 because I'm driving.
Oh, that's right. You're taking your train out there.
I'm flying. I don't want to fly. I don't want to do it, but I'm gonna.
So if it seems like, we're talking about this way too early, in some ways we are. That's why we didn't get into too many specific questions, just talking about the roster here.
But we have to. Everyone's talking about it. Folks, go to Google. Type in Ohio State Big Ten 2025 Media Day, and every outlet in the entire beat on the beat has a story about it. Because why? Because it just got announced on Monday afternoon. So we have no choice. How could we call ourselves the beat if we're not talking about the things that the beat is talking about?
Wow. That's a great point. Couldn't have said it any better myself. It was a Talking Tuesday on the beat. There's going to be a very real one coming in 3 weeks. And I promise it's going to be here before you know it, because July is here and there's going to be lots of crazy things happening at conference media days around the country. And the Big Ten one will be here before we know it. And then after that, 10 days later, camp starts at the end of July 31st. So what a wonderful time it is to be alive. Thanks for spending part of your Tuesday right here with us on The Beat. He is Birm. I am Austin, and we will talk to you tomorrow.